So the truth is, in my opinion, the Bravia 9 is and will be the best TV that you and me aspire to afford this year. In the battle for the best OLED and mini LED television, Sony is just declaring war on everybody, including Samsung, LG, TCL, and Hisense. And if you're wondering why or how, it's because it's a lot like a Lexus car versus Hyundai. Basically, they're saying that, well, there's a lot of gimmicks out there and we're going to show you the truth. Let's just start with AI, because everyone is using AI now, and just like local dimming zones, I gotta tell you, a lot of this AI talk is overrated, at least in your television, because how AI is working is that it's gonna judge what the picture is and use it and compare it to another picture inside of its database, and that processor is gonna try to do something with that 100 million pixels on the screen there in real time. So Samsung and LG, they really love their AI, and you're seeing this. It was incorporated in their fridges, their washers, their vacuums, and their televisions. And a lot of it is really matching the image to image or pixel to pixel to something inside the machine's database. It just takes a good AI and a massive database to detect the image, but also to make sure that it's going to correspond to the right object. But the Sony Bravia 9 does something a little bit different. It uses something called object detection, and that's really matching up objects in the picture with their movie studio image database. You know, Sony owns that big movie studio, Sony Pictures, that makes hundreds of movies every year, like Spider-Man. And the best part about it is that, like Elon Musk preaches, data is king in AI. And Sony has the most image data, especially proprietary image data, because they have Sony Pictures, and maybe later, they might even own Paramount Pictures as well. So let's talk about the Brightness Wars, aka the Nits Wars, because you can't go into a Best Buy without the salesperson yelling at you, hey, that TV has 1,000 nits, that TV is 600 nits. But let's be honest where this came from. It's because it makes TVs easier to sell. Because brands like Hisense and TCL, and I don't mean to pick on them, I have a Hisense U6, I have a Hisense U8, and they're great. But then I saw the Hisense flagship, that 110UX, and they're claiming 10,000 nits and 40,000 local dimming zones. So basically, it's like an OLED screen, but it's mini LED. And then TCL on their X11H mini LED TV saying, oh, I got 5,000 nits and 4,000 local dimming zones. And I'm just so confused because I'm not sure why TCL is claiming so little, because how can you really test 5,000 versus 10,000 knowing that the sun, like the sun, when you look outside at 9 a.m. in the morning, that might be 10,000 nits. And I just don't understand why TCL doesn't just claim 10,000 nits too, because it would be pretty blinding at that peak brightness. And that's the rub. This notion of nits has to disappear, at least in this capacity, because more local dimming zones does not equal better dimming. Because if you have the X95K from Sony, which had 6x the local dimming zones as the X95J, you could not tell really the difference between the two because the algorithm matters. And Sony has the best dimming algorithm in the industry. So let me show you what that means in this demonstration.
So what you're seeing here has nothing to do with color. This is just backlighting. The TV on the right there is the Samsung QN90C. Which is their top mini LED model in the lineup. And what you'll notice is that, and by the way, this is our Bravia 9, what you'll notice is that when you look at the two, the small dots are really your zones, basically. And you'll notice they potentially, I can't really say, potentially have more zones based on what you can see, right? If you can count really fast, you can come up with the exact number. But we're not really here to emphasize or show zones. But what we are here to show are these little guys here. These are our driver ICs, which allow us to control every zone on there with pinpoint precision, as well as help us to not use as much power. This is, again, just backlighting. Based on the backlighting that you're seeing on the right, on the Samsung versus the left, you'll notice you're seeing a lot more detail in the image, right? And if you look here, it shows you what actually is being played through these players. And really the goal here is to show you that when it comes to zones, if you're not controlling them correctly, you could be wasting all these luscious LED zones by not being able to control, dim, boost, or brighten those zones to create the best creator's intent, right? What the director intended. So what you're seeing as we play here is, if we were watching the same picture on a screen that had, let's say, different layers of one color, so like a cake, right? A strawberry cake, for example. You would not be able to tell the difference
Next, let's talk about our main competition, the LG and the Samsungs of the world, who are really in a race to make the fully transparent wireless TVs. But I'm asking, where are they inside of, are they making our TVs that we want in our home better? Because Sony, in my opinion, is really focusing on this one question that a lot of people aren't. Does the picture look like the real thing? They are prioritizing accurate colors, less glare, better reliability, capturing the filmmaker's intent, and just basically capturing all the things that you, me, and a Joe from across the street might be caring about when you're purchasing a TV. So now let me talk about the Sony Bravia 9, because it is the closest to an OLED television you can get inside of a mini LED TV, hands down, without a doubt. When you look at it, you'll know, because it's way more brightness, and Sony's anti-glare coating is so good that I have to say this is probably the best in class for consumer TVs, just off my initial impression of it. And I've seen all those televisions at CES and at different conventions this year. And I've reviewed a lot of televisions, and I can't say that I've seen a TV as crisp and as clear and as available as the Sony does, especially in a 65-inch size. We're not talking about 110 inches here. I'm not talking about a 1,000-pound television. I'm talking about a television you would buy from Costco. Because what it can do is so different from what the others can do, because it uses something called a photonic chipset. So now Sony has changed their chipset, which is an upgrade across all of it. So Bravia 9 and the Bravia 7 uses it, and this really affects how fast that algorithm works at making your picture better and better. And regarding all the attention placed on Samsung not having Dolby Vision and those different Dolbys, I don't think that's a big deal, honestly, because LG has Dolby Vision, and yet the Sony Bravia 9 is still brighter, much brighter than any LG C4, C3 you might have tried out. And that's because it makes that brightness and translates that into better HDR, which is high dynamic range, and that refers to the technique that expresses details of content in both a very bright and a very dark scene. And it offers a more natural and realistic picture output, even with a widened range of contrast. And that's key. You got better HDR, you're gonna have better blacks, you got better performance. Now, one of the big assumptions that a lot of people might have is that, oh, it's not OLED. Mini LED is not gonna have the rich blacks that an OLED has. And even though I do agree with that to a capacity, I think the Mini LED Bravia 9 is the closest you're going to get, because Sony isn't releasing how many dimming zones is in the Bravia 9, but based on the blooming and the detail rendering, the blacks are better than the Samsung S95C OLED. It is going to be better, in my opinion, than the LG C4. The only one that really is coming close is the G4, but the G4 has a glossy finish, and if you got that in a bright living room, it's Glare City, y'all, right? It's Glare City. So then you're wondering, what is Sony's plan with the Bravia 9? And that's a good question, because I'm not sure myself. In my case, or in my opinion, Sony's kind of like Toyota, right? Toyota comes out with their new RAV4 or their new 4Runner or whichever vehicle you're into. And that Toyota is meant to last you a very long time, but still perform at a very high level. That's really where the Bravia 9 shines, is that you can have this in a home theater in your basement. It's going to be great. But then if I wanted to put this in a really bright living room, it's still going to be great too, because Sony has that really great anti-glare technology behind it, which is going to be leading into our segment about the Bravia 7. Because what is the Bravia 7 replacing? What is the place for the Bravia 7? That is meant, in my opinion, to be the ultimate replacement of the X95L. Now, the Bravia 7 to me is probably the most important product inside of this TV lineup, and that's because it's the one that a lot of us can afford without going crazy and taking a second mortgage on our house. The secret to me about that Bravia 7 is that it's basically the Sony X95L, which is a very expensive television. Even if you wanted to buy that right now, it is still going to cost you, well over $2,000 for a 65-inch. And it just doesn't come with the X wide angle, so the viewing angles are going to be a little bit more limited, and it doesn't come with that X anti-reflection layer that you get on the Bravia 9 or the X95L. Without that, for most people, it might not matter so much unless you're in a very, very, very bright room. But to be honest, I use the X90L, and I have that in a very bright room, and I don't notice any problem with glare. I had a huge problem with glare on all the glossy LGs, all the glossy Samsungs, and that's because, what does that mean? If you have a glossy TV, it's going to reflect. You might get better picture in the dark, but you're not going to get necessarily better picture in the light. And that Bravia 7 is coming with 480 local dimming zones at that 65-inch size, and it comes with 720 local dimming zones at that 75-inch size. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind. Just because you see these local dimming zones, they change as the TV gets bigger. So don't get too focused on them because it's all still about the picture. Now, Sony has their work cut out for them with the Bravia 3, because when I saw the Bravia 3, I was like, that's a cool television. It looks good. The colors are more accurate. It seems to be a good value. But when you get to a lower price point, I think it really comes down to the price. Like, I want to know how much television I'm getting for $400, $500. So ultimately, the question is, if you need a television today or you wanted to upgrade your TV today, should you wait for the Bravia 7 or 9? Absolutely. If you're thinking about spending money on that LG C3 that's 30% off, I would say, please wait for the Bravia 9. If you're wondering, should I get that Samsung S95? I would say, please wait. Check out that Bravia 7 or 9 because you get more for your money. It's going to sound crazy, but once you see the television side by side, you might say, oh, I wish I spent a little bit more for the Bravia, because you're going to be happier in the long run, at least in my opinion. I know a lot of people have been having reliability problems with their LGs and their Samsungs, especially the Samsungs. And then if you have a problem, getting service on a big screen television is not easy. Believe me, I've tried. Have you ever tried to return a 65-inch television, 75-inch, and 85-inch? It is impossible. Not only you need a pickup truck, but you need like 3 people with you. The key part to me is that you will be able to tell the difference with your eyes when you walk into the store. Like, I go into a Best Buy, I go into my Costco, the first thing they have is their big screen TVs. You're going to see, whoa, that's the Bravia 7, that's the Bravia 9. You're going to see it right next to right next to your LGs and your Samsungs. And then you're going to say, why? Why does the Sony look so much more accurate? How come I get more detail? How come I can see the outline of something that is hidden in a Samsung or an LG TV? Because what Sony's doing is that their engineers are not only working on televisions for you and me, but they're also working on monitors and cameras for Steven Spielberg and all these great directors that they use them inside when they make a movie. Because if money counts, and money counts a lot in my household, I want my money well spent. I prefer to get the Sony than worry about the Samsung. I prefer to get the Sony than worry about the LG. And that's why everyone, unless a lot of people I know, are still getting Sonys. So with that, thanks for watching, everybody. This is David with the French Glow, showcasing to you the Sony Bravias. I'll see you next time. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment box below, and please hit that like or subscribe button. It really does help support our channel, and I'll catch you soon. Bye, bye, bye.